Yeah.
weird being back.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, I was born at Mad River Hospital, but
Oh, wow.
yeah, I definitely didn't think I would ever move back here, but here I am.
Yeah, I dug into you a little bit, and it sounded like you've bounced around through Canada, Venezuela, the
hmm
Alps. I mean,
France, yeah,
you've been around.
I guess so. Sounds so pretentious. I've kind of been
And then
everywhere.
you're like, "Yeah, now I'm back in Eureka." And it's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. I don't hate it. It's great. But I wish it was like a tiny bit closer to San Francisco.
You like San Fran more?
Yeah, I lived there for 9 years,
Okay.
so yeah.
All for your writing work? Or bounced around through various other jobs?
No, so the writing I've been writing forever, but the official writing, like the actually having an agent thing is 3 months old or something. I've been trying for ages. I finally got to that point. So now I'm like crossing my fingers for a publishing deal.
So I've read that you've worked on 3 finished books, and it was your 3rd one that got you the agent, and now you're working on your 4th.
Yes, but the 3rd one is still in revisions because basically you're never done revising when you have a book out, like, every step includes, like, rewriting the whole thing, so yeah.
And will that one be published?
I hope so. So, once you have an agent, they basically try and pitch it to different publishers, and yeah, you could just end up right back at the beginning again if nobody wants it, but at least you have an agent and you can try with another book. Um, yeah, so it depends if she's able to find me a deal, which I hope she will.
Is getting an agent the hardest part, or is it then moving on and getting somebody to actually publish it?
Oh god, every step is the hardest part. It gets harder and harder
It's
and
like I'll
harder every
fight
time.
uphill the whole way.
Yeah, getting an agent is hard. Like, I definitely tried for I queer so querying is when you're, like, putting your book out there and pitching it to agents, so I did that with my last book and never got anywhere. I sent it out probably, like, 150 times or something. This one I sent out, I think, 63 times before I finally got a positive response. So, yeah,
That's promising.
it's a roller
Anyway,
coaster.
yeah. And the first 2 books or the first book, did you do anything with that one?
No, I thought it was amazing at the time, it really wasn't. I've read it again since then, and I'm like, "Wow, that's so embarrassing." I'm, like, humiliated that I showed anybody. So I've improved, which is good.
And you write fantasy books.
Yes. It's not like swords and dragons, I call it low fantasy, so it's, like, stuff that takes place in our world, but elements of magic involved.
Okay, I was thinking the dragons
I
more
mean, I'm
more
not saying there'll
mystic.
never be a dragon, but so far, no.
Can you say what this book is about? Your 3rd one?
Yeah, so the one that my agent has right now that I just turned in my revisions, but there'll probably be another round, it's called Cafe Euphoria, and it's basically about a woman who's in a kind of an abusive relationship, but she finds a magical cafe and sort of learns how to escape through that. Haven't found the amazing way to pitch that yet, but, you know.
And how did you get into writing?
Uh, God, I've always
Always just
written.
dabbled? 'Cause you
Yeah,
went to school for it, right? You got your
yeah,
master's
for
in
my
creative writing?
master's, yeah. I mean, every writer you ever talk to is like, "I've been writing since before I could speak," and, I'm gonna be a totally cliché and, like, say the same thing, but, yeah, I mean, I always wrote stories, and I like making shit up.
Did you
Can I
know
swear?
that yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely,
Excellent,
everything
because I
goes.
do.
Did you know that that's what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I think a part of me assumed that I would have a more realistic idea at some point, and it never happened.
Yeah, I think a lot of us find ourselves in that spot. We're like, "Oh,
Yeah,
I'll figure it out," and then you're just doing this other thing, you're like, "I guess this is just
I
the
guess
road that I'm
this is the
on, it's gotta
thing.
work out."
I mean, if someone could just throw money at me for being awesome, that
That
would
would be
be
great.
great,
I
yeah.
think we would all sign up for that.
I would be super into that, but so far no one has offered, so still waiting.
Yeah, gotta just tough it out,
Yeah.
keep writing. Do you get is it a grueling process? I've obviously never tried to write a book, but I would imagine it's an ordeal trying to get there.
It's a major head fuck, but obviously I must like it because I keep putting myself through it every time.
Glutton for punishment.
It's yeah, you get yourself stuck in these crazy hypothetical puzzles that you have to figure out your way out of because, like, spoiler alert, when you write a book, you also have to end the book. Like, it has to have a resolution, and you're like, "Well, crap, I made this, like, intense situation, and now I don't know how to get out of it." So, yeah, it's a lot of problem solving, but, like, Obviously, if something's not work, scrap it and start over, change something.
Is
Yeah.
it hard giving up on something? If you're writing it and you're putting in this time and you realize, "Maybe this is not gonna go where I want it to."
Yes, but you don't have to give up forever, like, maybe
Put it on pause for a little while.
yeah, like, maybe in a couple years, you'll be like, "Oh my god, I know the solution of how to make it amazing," and you can go back and revise.
Is that your process? Do you work on it for a little bit and then step away, or do you try to go all the way through?
Uh, I feel like I like to get at least to the end of a draft before I step away, which is a lie for the last thing I worked on, but usually, yeah.
What does a draft look like in comparison to the actual book? Like,
Um,
significantly shorter, like 20%?
it's not necessarily even about length, it's just, like, what happens will change.
Just like the rough storyline of where you're going.
Yeah, like, a lot of times I'll realize, like, when I've gotten significantly far in, like, "Oh, like, that character should have been doing this thing all along," and that changes everything that comes after that, but, I mean, yeah, you just have to accept that things are gonna change, is I mean, I guess you only have yourself to blame if that happens, but, you have to be flexible, so there's a lot of similarities between writing and improv in that way.
And I would imagine rejection's a big part of both of those.
Yeah. Well, not improv because actually improv is super, super, what's the word? Empowering because you say something on stage, everyone has to go with it. Like, so you can't be wrong. Whereas with writing, yeah, 100% so much rejection. Like,
You're just sending it out, and I
yeah.
would imagine, is it worse getting the no back or just getting ghosted when you send something out?
Oh, they're both pretty terrible. I think it's worth getting ghosted because you still have that sliver of
Maybe they
hope.
didn't get it.
Yeah, like, oh, maybe they'll read it like a year from now and realize it's amazing. Um, But yeah, I usually you'll get like a form response from agents that's just like, "Oh, no thanks, this isn't what I'm looking for right now." But they try to be encouraging, like, "Keep trying. This is all subjective. There's something out there for everyone." One time I got like the harshest one ever. It was literally one line. They were like, "No thanks." Not even like, "Dear Lara" or anything. So
Just
that
no
was
thanks. No
yeah.
header, just nothing.
Yeah.
That's a tough one to bounce back
Like,
from.
whew, okay. I think I would have preferred to be ghosted than that one.
Yeah. You don't have anything nice to say, maybe don't send.
Yeah. It is super subjective though, right? Like some people are like, "Oh, I only read erotica about vampires." And then some people are like, "I only need really serious biographies about your life story." I don't know. Yeah, people have just different tastes and finding the person who's into the thing that you write and also has the bandwidth to take on a new project and all these factors. It's a gamble.
And is it hard finding an agent that gets that vision of your book? They'd probably be as niched as who's publishing what, right?
Yeah, so yeah, pretty much at every step, like you've got to find the one person who sees your project and is like, "I feel strongly about this. This is for me." Like yeah, so
That's almost with everything nowadays because markets are so saturated across the board. You just have to manage to carve out your niche and find your people.
yeah. Yeah, and then the thing too is when you're pitching a book, you have to have comp titles, which is other books that are similar to your book, but not too similar because then they're like that already exists. But similar enough that the agent or the publishers know, like, how it would sell and where they should place it on the market. But you can't choose someone that's or something that's too much of a bestseller because then that's, like, unrealistic. You can't say, like, "I'm gonna be the next Harry Potter," because 'cause they're like, "Yeah, right." But then if you choose something that no one's read, they're like, "Well, I've never heard of it, so that means nothing to me." So, yeah, pitching in general
Just a
is
rough fight. And improv is actually how we were talking a little bit before the podcast. That's how I came across you was that no exit you guys are doing. Or the exit
the
theater.
exit theater,
Exit
yeah,
theater. I'm
yeah.
thinking no exit. Who did that? Jean Paul. Sorry. That's a different thing. But
Well, this exit has an exit,
this
yeah.
exit has an exit.
It's crazy how I found that theater because recently they closed their San Francisco branch and I had no idea there was another one in Arcata, my hometown. So like I'm like hanging around the plaza doing something. I think I was window shopping or whatever and I see this big sign that says the exit in the same like font, the same logo as the one that I used to perform at like 10 years ago in San Francisco, and I'm like, "Wait, what? Like, that tiny indie theater in the Tenderloin? Like, no way there's a branch in Arcata." So I, like, messaged her, and she was like, "Yeah, yeah, it's the same one." So that was crazy because it's, like, really, like, the tiniest little theater you ever saw, the one in San Francisco, which is now closed, but
I
yeah.
didn't even know there was one in San
Well,
Francisco.
there isn't anymore,
Well,
but
yeah.
that's, like, as of a month ago, unfortunately. It was around for, like, 30 years or something.
Same owner?
Yeah. She moved up to Arcata and decided to start another theater, so
Oh, wow.
yeah, which is awesome. She was like I asked her, "Oh, do you have someone who does improv?" And she was like, "Are you interested?" I was like, "Yes! That's why I'm asking."
How did you get into improv?
So I always wanted to do theater when I was, like, little, like, in high school and stuff, but I was painfully shy, and I would go to, like, auditions for, like, the school play and chicken out at the last minute, and then, one time someone was like, "You sure you don't wanna paint sets?" And I was just like, I wanna act." Uh, but yeah, like, I was just super, super shy, and, it took me forever to discover improv. Like, yeah, after undergrad, I was in San Francisco, I was like, "Maybe I should try theater again." But I want something low commitment. I don't wanna have to, like, rehearse and which is ridiculous because when you do improv, you have to rehearse all the time, which a lot of people don't realize. So yeah, I just signed up for a class and got the improv bug. Like, it's people say improv is a total cult because, like, once you start, you're like, "This is the best thing ever," and you try and recruit everyone, and you're always playing these weird, like, silly games, and people are like,
I didn't know you had to rehearse for improv. I always thought it was just on the spot.
It is on the spot, but you wanna rehearse the skills, because you would think that there are no rules, but there are, uh, and they're not hard and fast rules, but in order to play successfully in a way that's gonna be satisfying for people to watch, and for you to, like, be able to build a scene that goes anywhere, it's good to have those skills, like, uh, trusting your scene partner, of course, I'm drawing a blank, but yeah, there are a lot of skills.
Just secret techniques of the trade.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it hard trusting the people that are on stage with you?
I think it's, I think there are benefits to playing with people you've never played with before because it's fun and you never know what's gonna happen, but it's also really great to work with people that you've been playing with for ages, say you're on a troupe together or something, because you can almost anticipate where they're gonna go. You can "pimp each other out," quote, unquote, like, when you're like, "Oh, this person is really, like or has trouble with this skill, so I'm gonna, like, tease them and I'm gonna make them sing," or something. You conjure a situation where you sort of throw them into the headlights. I don't know, it's fun to mess with people,
That'd
but
be a good way to set up a friend. Like, "Okay, this next scene, we're gonna just go in."
yeah, yeah, like, if I walk into a room and I'm like, oh my god, it's the famous opera singer, please give me a demonstration," and, like, they can't say no, that would destroy the reality of the scene. Yes and is the number 1 rule of improv, right? You have to agree with the situation and then add to it so that you're building a scene together. So, like, if you're like, I'm not an opera singer," then that destroys the reality of the scene.
Do you guys go in when you start a show with an idea of how you want it to start? Or do you take
Mm,
feedback from the audience of, "Hey, shoot us an idea"?
yeah, so usually you'll come out and you'll ask for a suggestion of some sort. It could be like, "Give me a word of inspiration," or it could be like, "Tell me about a dream you once have." Like, sometimes people will pull an audience member onto the stage and interview them about, like, their love life or something. Um, and then there's so one mistake that people often make when they're first starting out is like, say you're like, "Okay, could I get a word of inspiration, please?" And the person's like, "Elephant." And then the improvisers are like, "Okay, every scene has to be about an elephant," which can get old really fast. So basically, the idea is just take inspiration from it. Maybe you think elephant, uh, Africa. And then, like, maybe you have a scene that, like, someone's going to Africa, but they lost their passport. Like, it could just be random tangents going off of one idea.
And are you guys weaving multiple scenes together, or how do you know when a scene is done? Just when you guys run out of things to play
So
off?
you look for something called the button, which is like a really strong ending. Um, and so there are different ways to edit a scene, which is just like to cut it off. There's the shark edit where you just like run past everyone with your arm out and everyone knows, okay, that means sweep the scene and start over. Um,
And somebody's doing that on stage, just running
Yeah,
across the
it
stage?
could be
Okay.
someone off stage or, like, on the side who's not in this particular scene, it could be someone in the scene. You could tag someone out and be like, "Okay, this is still the same scene, but now that character's leaving and I'm gonna go in and be a different character." But yeah, basically you look for a line that hopefully gets a laugh, and then, where going beyond that point would just be sort of an anticlimax. You look for a high point to cut it off at, which
Are
is not always the easiest
not always
skill.
possible,
Yeah,
yeah.
and sometimes it drags on a little bit, and that's improv. You can't predict what's gonna happen, but it's so fun.
Are you trying to drag it on for a certain length? Is that part of the skill is to just carry out a scene?
I don't think so. I think scenes just sort of the length depends, right? Sometimes you'll get to the point of it really quickly. One thing you do want to do when you're in an improv scene is like set the stage really quickly. So you want the who, what, where people call it. So establish who's in the scene as soon as possible, maybe even in the first line. Like, what's the relationship between the two people? So if I'm like, Grandma, my leg's broken, obviously that person is now my grandma and I'm their grandchild. So that's the who, the what, what's the situation. In that case, my leg is broken. Pretty clear. And then where like you'd want to hopefully be able really quickly to establish like and we're in a Walmart. But sometimes you can make that pretty obvious. Like sometimes sometimes it's clear where you are from context, but it's also okay to drop an obvious bomb, which is just like being really, really clear about where you are, even if it's a little bit awkward, like, at least then everyone knows what's happening.
Yeah, because you want the audience obviously to be clued in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're gonna lose them really fast.
Yeah, if you're spending the whole time, like, kind of being wishy-washy and like, "I think that person's my brother, but I'm not 100 they might also be my boyfriend, I don't know," like, then, like, the audience is just as confused as you are, and they're gonna be like,
Yeah.
"Can
Is
I
it time to go
leave?"
yet?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, "How long is the show again?"
How
Yeah.
long are the shows?
It depends. A lot of the shows I've been in, there'll be like a couple of sets. Like there'll be like a one troupe goes on for 20 minutes and then there's a break and then another troupe goes on and then there's a finisher who are like more experienced people or something. It depends. Um but for one troupe, I don't know, I guess 15, 20 minutes. 30 might be a bit long, but possible.
And
Yeah.
how many scenes are you doing in that
It
15, 20
depends.
minutes?
Yeah, it could
Still just
be.
depends on if you can hit that button or not.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And they might be related. You might come back to some scenes at some point. Because one important distinction to know about if you don't know anything about improv is that there's two main types. There's long form and short form. What I like to do is long form, which is like you're creating a story, right? And even if like the scenes don't always come back, like there should be sort of a narrative happening, whereas short form you're playing games. Like if you've seen Whose Line Is It Anyways, it's like now we're doing this game and now we're doing that game, and that's fun too. I often do those things for warm-ups, but it's like a whole different kind of a show.
I didn't know there were 2 kinds of
Yeah.
improv.
Yeah.
I'd never heard
Now
that.
you know.
Now I
You're
know.
welcome.
Thank you. And so games really just participatory games, like you're actually playing some game on stage?
Yeah, yeah, like, there's some shows that are like that, maybe it's a rhyming game, yeah, mhm.
And those significantly shorter. That's why there's the short form
Yes,
ones.
yeah, so you would probably have multiple ones of those, but yeah, they make even if you're a long form improviser, those are really good warm-ups because they practice the same skills, like spontaneity and thinking on your feet and
All crucial.
yeah, yeah.
I've only ever come across improv. I took a theater class in college,
Oh, cool.
and we did improv as warm-ups. That
Yeah,
would be
yeah,
one of our warm-up exercises. Somebody would set a scene, and we just go into it
yeah,
until I
that's
guess
the
you could say
thing.
it hit the button, but normally it would just die out and people would lose interest, and then we go on to the next exercise.
I mean, that also happens. It's, yeah. I don't know, if you watch a lot of, I don't know, in sitcoms and popular culture, like, people like to make fun of improv a lot, and it's true that, like, sometimes it's bad improv, what can you do? Like, you can't predict what's gonna happen, sometimes it's not your best day, you don't know, you're not really feeling it, but, like, that's kind of the beauty of improv is, like, you get what you get, and it's you can't predict it, and you're just in the moment, and if you're really in the moment, I would argue that usually it's gonna be good because you're just, like, not thinking about, "Would that be funny if I said this?" And, "Oh, wait, did would that make sense if I said this?" Like, and you're just responding organically, like, I think that tends to be the most successful way to do it.
Is that the hardest part in training people is to get them out of their head and into the
Yes,
scene?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, because it's really hard, and, like, I talk to a lot of people who are like, "Oh, I could never do improv," like, I'm not funny, and I'm like, "Well, first of all, improv doesn't have to equal comedy, like, it's just making up a play. It could be dramatic, it could be about someone's divorce, you know, like, people think that it's always comedy, but that's not necessarily true. Obviously, if you're an audience member and you expect it to be comedy and you go and it's, like, about somebody dying of a terrible disease, like, you might be a little disappointed, so maybe get your expectations set before you go, but, yeah. I don't remember where I was going with that.
Just pulling people out of their head. That was the hardest thing in our acting class too, is
Yeah.
just getting people into the scene. Because everyone
Yeah,
gets, especially if you're around a group of people that don't know each other, everyone's super self-conscious.
for
They
sure.
don't wanna fully lean in and make themselves look like a fool.
And I think it's super obvious if you're trying too hard to be funny. Like, the whole point of improv is it's funny because it comes out of nowhere, you know? It's funny because it's random. It's funny because it's spontaneous. So, like, if you're trying really hard to make it funny, then it's not gonna be funny. That's my
It
opinion.
has the reverse effect. When you start
Yeah.
trying too hard, it's
Yeah, like, have you seen bad stand-up ever? Like, you can tell when they're just sweating bullets, like, "Please laugh. Please laugh. I swear I'm funny. I'm setting out my childhood trauma for you to laugh at, please." And it's like, ugh.
I think of the one person that's when you go to sing karaoke, the one person that's out there just really trying to sell it like they're this perfect singer, and
I
it's
won't
just
lie, that's been me
yeah,
before,
it's
but,
just rough. You're sitting in the
yeah.
audience, you're like, "This is not what I thought it was gonna be."
Yeah. But on the other hand, ultimately, like, any sort of performance maybe that's not true, I'll just keep it to improv. Like, as long as you're having fun, everyone else will have fun. Like, you can tell when somebody's having fun, and it really just brings the energy out, you know, and that transmits to the audience, so yeah, hopefully your scene partner is also having fun. Otherwise, maybe you're doing something wrong, but
Yeah, you have to enjoy what you're doing.
yeah.
It's easy. It translates to everyone around you if you do.
Yeah. To go back to so you were saying, is it harder to play with people you don't know or people that you do know? One thing is, like, you should be aware of other people's boundaries when you're playing with them, right? Like, you don't wanna necessarily go into a scene with somebody and, like, start, like, pulling them across the stage, and what if they have, like, an arm thing, you know? Like, or, like, oh, you instantly make the scene about, like, cancer or something, and, like, their uncle just died or whatever, so I think it is good to know a bit about the people you're playing with because it can be horrible to be, like, pulled out of the moment by something you weren't expecting that's, like, hard for you to, like, deal with in front of an audience. So, I think if you're playing with people you've never met before, it's good to have a little chat beforehand of, like, any subjects we should absolutely avoid.
Is that what you teach in your classes? Is just
I
opening
try
it up with
to.
that?
Yeah, yeah, I try to. And so up until now at the Exit Theater, I've just been doing like free monthly classes. But now that I'm going to be doing a 6 week course, it'll be interesting because it'll be the same people every time for 6 weeks. And I'm hoping that they'll be able to like bond and sort of come up with a cohesive way to play together, you know, because it's different when you've played with the same people a couple of times.
Yeah, and a big transition from just dropping in and doing it occasionally to now we're doing this intensive course where you're gonna stick with it for a
Yeah.
period of time.
And there's a performance at the end, so I'm like,
In front at the theater.
yeah, 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 yeah. It's gonna be March. The what number is it? A Saturday, first Saturday in March. I feel like that's like the 6th or 7th. I don't know. So yeah, so the people who and it's open to all levels. So some people will be beginners, maybe some people already have experience, but yeah, the idea is to get them basically ready to do an improv show at the end.
Get them ready for that stage time.
Yeah. So we'll have, like, a lot of scenes towards the end of the like, first, I think we'll practice, like, individual skills, and then we'll build up to doing scenes, and I'll do some, like, side coaching, like, "Okay, now try it that way," kinda thing.
Do you ever turn any of these into skits? If you go up and do improv and you really like the way a scene went,
People
does that
do.
translate?
Yeah, I've definitely been guilty of having my little notebook and being like, "This would make a really funny short story."
Well, I'd imagine because you guys are just burning through a ton of ideas all the time, I would
Yeah.
imagine some of those really hit, especially for the audience, and you'd think, "Oh, maybe we should
Yeah,
come
for
back to
sure.
that."
I mean, a lot of comedy schools that do improv also do sketch writing, right? And some people do use that for like generating ideas. Likewise, when I'm writing, improv is super helpful to me because I, like, can imagine that I'm in the scene and be like, "Okay, if someone said this to me, how would I respond? And if that doesn't work, well, how would I respond a different way?" And it's like being in a scene, right? You imagine the character throwing a line at you and you have to answer. So it adds spontaneity to it too.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. That probably translates pretty well into your writing.
Either way,
Of
you're making shit up, which is what I like to do, so
not a
it's
bad way to make a living.
Yeah. Oh, well, I don't, but
Well, eventually, ideally,
one day,
right?
though.
Yeah. The goal is one day.
Yeah, yeah. No, unfortunately, I have a day job. Not that I don't like my day job, just saying.
What do you do? What's your day job?
I write content for a website, yeah.
Oh, that's fun. Still writing in the same realm.
Yeah.
Writing like news commentary or
It's, like, educational content for, like, random topics. It's for ESL learners, so basically just, like, different topics, like, simplified with vocabulary words and comprehension questions, like educational materials.
how'd you
Yeah.
get involved in that?
I used to be an ESL teacher. ESL, not ASL. So English as a second language,
Not
not
sign
American
language.
Sign Language.
Yeah.
I sometimes don't enunciate, and people are like, "Wow, that's amazing. You speak sign language." I'm like, "No."
Can you sign for me?
I wish, but no, I know the alphabet, I think. Yeah.
What made you wanna do that?
Well, so it's kind of related to how I've lived in a lot of places. I just love traveling, and I love hanging out with international people, so
Just fit.
I got to hang out with them all day when I was teaching them. It was adults, which I really liked. Yeah.
Probably a little easier than working with kids too.
I think so. I don't have a whole lot of experience with kids, but I feel like I might not have the patience.
Although the creative aspect might translate well, because 'cause
Yeah.
they're a little more creative than most adults.
Yeah. Actually, that's definitely something, like, a lot of adults will say, "Oh, I'm not creative," and I think that's so sad because everyone is creative, and I, like, really believe that. So a lot of times, yeah, I would be in my classes, like, and I'd do, like, a creative assignment because that's the kinda thing I like to do, and I would have to, like, convince them, "No, your ideas are good, just believe in them." Yeah.
People get jaded pretty
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah. Well, that's what's great about improv. It's like you're literally playing. Like it's playtime for adults is I mean, kids can do improv too, but I teach adults. So, yeah, I think people need to play.
I
People
think
need
they'd be
to
happier if they played, or
Yeah,
just cut loose every
exactly.
now and then.
Uh, Improv is so good for mental health. Like, yeah, it's just like it gets you out of your head. It gets you being creative without having to have like supplies and setting aside like the time to do the creative thing and overthinking it. Like, it's just like the most spontaneous thing, which like I think a lot of people need that.
Do you think everyone can do improv?
Yes. Well, yes.
Ah, there it is, right? You're like,
I
"Ah,
answered you
well"
instantly, and then I was like, "Do I wanna backtrack? No, I don't think so. I think everyone can do improv." Yeah. I've even, like, seen people do improv in a language that isn't their native language, like, it's what's really great about improv is that you're encouraged to be supportive of everyone that you're playing with, and so, as long as people are playing by those rules, like, you're never gonna be, like, left out or, like, told, like, "No, your idea is stupid," right? Because then they're the asshole and they're doing it wrong. Basically, I can't remember who said this, but one of my teachers that I had said, "If you're not having fun, you're the asshole," which I think is awesome advice in improv. It's like, "You're not having fun? Try harder."
well, just in life too.
Yeah.
You're the one
Yeah.
sitting on the sideline complaining about everything, you might need a mirror to look in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I only ask that because it's one of those things where everyone thinks, "Oh, yeah, I could do comedy," and then they get up there and they're like, "Oh, this is not what I thought it was gonna be." I didn't know if that was translated in the same way where you kinda need something to do improv.
Like a specific skill or
Specific skill, maybe a certain inclination. I mean, even to just get up on stage and beat your stage fright.
Oh, okay. I mean, you shouldn't do improv if you don't want to. But yeah, I mean, stage fright is something that you get over. Like I still get it once in a while and I've been doing improv for like 10 years, but the
You just
more you
push through it pretty quick.
yeah, the more you do it. And also the thing is like everyone on stage is in the same situation as you. It's not like you're standing naked in front of an audience like that reoccurring dream that people have apparently. I've never had it. Um like everyone's there just like on the spot together. So, you know, you're not alone.
There's that community aspect where you guys really have you gotta rely on them because you
Yeah.
guys are just rolling with the punches up there together.
Yeah. What's really great about it is, like, it sounds funny to say because you're up there playing characters and stuff, but I think people are most themselves when improvising, because there's no filter, you're just responding the quickest way that you can, like, the most organic way that you can, so, like, you can't put up a front and pretend to be someone way cooler than you actually are, and, like, obviously, everyone is cooler when they're being themselves, so, I just personally think that improvisers are, like, the best people ever. They're just, like, joyful and fun and inclusive. Yeah.
Well, like we were saying, it pulls you out of your head by
Yeah.
necessity. In
Yeah.
order to do it or at least do it well, you have to just be present, and you
Yeah.
can't do that while worrying about, "How do I look?" or "Am
Yeah.
I doing this right? Am I moving okay?"
Totally. I mean, obviously, because it's so spontaneous, you could find yourself saying something that you didn't wanna say, and then, like, it happens, like, we get over it, like, say you're playing a character who says controversial things, and then you go too far, and then you're like, "Oh, no, everyone in the audience is gonna think that's what I think and not my character," but, like, just move on. People will forget, you know? Yeah, there's no rehearsal for improv, so what happens, happens, and you just accept it and move on.
Does that happen where a scene gets maybe controversial or
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't happened too much when I've been around, luckily. Not like I, have been monitoring it. What's the word? Monitoring. But yeah, I mean, it's happened before that like or like maybe like a guy says something sexist and they didn't realize it and then afterwards everyone calls them out. One time I was playing a southerner. I forget. I was some southern lady and I was like, "Oh, this is going great. I'm just being a southern lady doing this thing." I don't remember what the situation was. And afterwards, I think it was an audience member was like, "You cannot do a black accent like that. That is not okay." And I was like, I wasn't imitating a black person. I thought I was being southern." But I felt really like, "Oh god, did I do something terrible without realizing, which like my intention obviously was not to portray like another person, but it was just an awkward moment and then I explained, "Well, that's not what my intention was, but like I'm sorry."
then you
Yeah.
just work through it,
Yeah.
keep going?
Yeah. I was like, I don't know. Things like that happen.
Well, and when you're dealing with an audience, and it's not you might be able to know, "Okay, where do I stand with my group up here?" And, like, who's triggered by what maybe, and where should we stay away from, but then you bring in this group of people who
Yeah,
you
they
guys
don't
are
know
just
you.
yeah, and they don't know
Mhm.
what you're about, and they don't know where you come from, and you guys are just up there rolling with the
Yeah.
punches again.
And sometimes they don't even know like really what improv is, so they're
Yeah, how many people
expecting
just
one
walk in, they're
thing.
like, "Oh, improv show," and just go in there.
Yeah, I mean, it happens, and like I said, there's sometimes improv, it doesn't go well, and that's just life, and sometimes it's amazingly hilarious, and you're still thinking about the same scenes for weeks on end because they were that funny. Just yeah, you can't predict who's gonna be sitting there watching you, you can only do your best, so
Is it weird performing in front of people?
yes. Yeah, but good weird.
Do you get used to it, or is it still kind of the same shock when you walk up on stage and you're up there and people are there to see you guys?
I think everyone, like, has a little bit of imposter syndrome sometimes, but, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are people who are, like, so amazingly confident that they never get stage fright, I would like to be that one day. No, I still get stage fright, and, like, it's always gonna be yeah, it just there's so many different elements that you have to balance, and everything can affect something else. Yeah.
Doing public things has always been weird to me,
Yeah.
even with this, but at least with this, there's a degree of separation 'cause it's
Right.
just us 3 in this room.
Right, and all the people behind that screen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's I can you can separate yourself from them because 'cause I'm only looking at you and I'm only talking to you,
Right,
and then
right.
it's after the fact that it's like, "Okay, now other people are actually engaging in this."
Yeah,
But you
yeah.
guys are up there and you're getting live feedback from the audience. You're getting laughs or people are sitting
Or
there
not laughs.
deadpanned. Yeah, and they're looking at you guys like, "Okay, be funny," or "Okay, do something that's gonna
Yeah.
be interesting."
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit nerve-wracking, but the other thing I didn't mention is, like, once you get a little better at improv, like, I feel like other elements of your life become easier, like job interviews, like, if you can say stupid things on a stage in front of people, like, you can totally bullshit your way through a job interview. I'm not saying you should lie on your resume. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you have to do presentations at work, if you have a job where you have to do presentations, like, that becomes suddenly so much easier. Like, teaching, even teaching outside of the context of improv, like teaching ESL students, which I used to do, like, it was so much easier since I had improv experience.
Do you think that just comes from the confidence boost of it, of doing it?
Yeah, and, like, yeah, the whole mentality of, like, things can go wrong and that's okay, you know?
I think it's good for people to do things that get them out of their comfort zone is the
Yeah.
key.
Yeah, do things that scare you. That's, literally so I attend an improv camp, a couple times a year, and, there's a new t-shirt that comes out every time there's a new camp, and one of them literally says, "Follow the fear," which, is, I think, great advice. I mean, maybe don't jump off a cliff, but
Yeah, that's a different kind of fear. I think we could agree on that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
push yourself and push
Yeah.
your boundaries.
Yeah, because if you're afraid of something, there's gotta be a reason that you're afraid of that, right? So you should maybe work to overcome it, and that'll make you a better, more well-rounded person, I think.
Well, and the alternative is you never go up against that boundary and then it's just always there. You never at
Yeah.
least try to break through it. And then
Yeah.
you're always worried about speaking in public or you're always worried about job interviews.
Yeah,
You never
exactly.
get the chance to overcome that.
Yeah, yeah, and who knows, maybe you're amazing at something, but you have no idea because you never tried.
Improv camp.
Yeah.
Is that like band camp? What
It's like summer camp, but for adults, and it's amazing. Yeah, like, you literally have, like, camp activities like archery and axe throwing and stuff, but then you have improv workshops with, like, different well-known teachers from all over the country, sometimes, different parts of the world. And yeah, it's just, like, my happy place, it's so great.
is improv if you get into a big troupe, is it pretty self-sustaining? Like that could be a career that you go down? Is just doing
I think
improv?
that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
It's more a passion project than
yeah.
anything.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if you live in, like, Hollywood or, some people in New York, maybe. But, like, not usually. It's pretty rare.
Is that just there's not a big enough market for it? Because theater, you could work at a small theater company and you could get by, right?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
But improv's not quite there yet.
I mean, there are improv theaters and people make a decent living, but I think if you're just like a person who says, I'm gonna be an improviser and now I want that to be my career, like you're gonna have to work for many, many, many years to get to a point where people are gonna like pay you enough that you can pay your rent.
It's a longer path.
I would say so, yeah.
Do a lot of them do theater and acting gigs on the side?
It kind of depends where you are, I think. Definitely a lot of people that I know from SoCal, they'll do auditions and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm in a commercial this month, but I also have my regular improv troupe," and stuff like that. Maybe in Humboldt County a little bit less.
Be harder to do up here.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely people who do local productions and also enjoy improv, but I think it's less like career actors.
And I don't know. I know we have the North Coast Repertory Theater. I don't know. Do they pay? Or is that
I don't
I don't
know.
know.
I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question. I need to look up some of the scene. I So that's the whole reason that I started my improv classes when I got here is like I said I was living in San Francisco for the past 9 years minus a stint in Arizona, which was random. Um and like I love improv and it's a huge part of my life. And I got here and I was like, there's no community. What am I gonna do? Like, how am I gonna get my improv fix? So I was like, all right, I guess I'm starting something. Yeah.
Had you taught prior to coming up here or coming back here?
I've taught I've taught improv like one-off workshops to like people who aren't improvisers necessarily, like, for example, ESL students, or, like, I'd do, like, an improv workshop for the other teachers at the school I was teaching at, but this is the first time that I've actually just, like, taught workshops and classes from my own. I wouldn't say I have a company, but yeah,
Would that be a goal, is to build
I would
a
love
troupe
that.
up here?
Yeah, I would love that. So, honestly, like, as much as I love teaching, I just wanna play. So I would love to be able to gather some people who have a little bit of experience and be able to do shows in addition to teaching, because I do love teaching and it's really, really exciting to see students like catch that improv bug and get that spark in their eyes of like, oh my God, this is amazing. How didn't I discover this before? But I also really just want to like play. So yeah, that would be awesome.
That childhood spirit of play. I
Yeah.
think it's an interesting idea nowadays because we're all, or at least me, I'm work
Yeah.
focused 24/7. Is you're working. You're
Yeah.
trying to build something for the future, so the idea of playing now is almost a foreign concept.
Yeah, and people are like, "Well, why would I spend or why would I spend time doing that when it's not gonna, like, bring me any, like, monetary benefit?" But, like, it brings you other benefits, which I think are super important as well, like
Happiness is a benefit.
I would think so, yeah, I would hope so.
Life gets a little bland if you're excluding that aspect from your life.
Yeah. I mean, I don't wanna judge anybody's lifestyle, but I feel a little sad when people are like, "I don't have hobbies, I just watch Netflix and go to work," and I'm like, "No, do something that makes your heart sing."
I think a lot of people are in that boat.
Yeah, and obviously our modern society is not set up to, like, have time to just play for funsies. Um, Obviously, like, life is expensive and you gotta spend time trying to pay bills, like, we all have that problem, but I think people should prioritize doing things that really make them feel alive.
Especially the hobby aspect.
Yeah.
You can find something that you enjoy, and even if you just do it a couple nights a week, like pick up a paintbrush,
Yeah,
or you play board games. Maybe that's your hobby is you really like these board
totally.
games.
Yeah.
Do find something that brings a little bit of joy that you can
Yeah,
do, and you don't have to spend money. Maybe your hobby is running.
totally.
Go for a run.
Yeah, a lot of people say, like, you should do the thing that you loved doing when you were a kid, so I feel like a lot of people just, like, sort of push that inner child aside, but, like
Well, you have to grow up. That's the idea. Is you have to
yeah!
grow up. You got to
Screw
get
that.
serious. Yeah, right. You have to get serious. You have to find the career.
Yeah, and, like, obviously, yes, those things are important, but I don't think you should, push that part of yourself aside completely, because that's what makes you feel like it's worth living.
And that's what makes you interesting, is
I
when you
would hope
have yeah,
so,
you have
yeah.
these things that you like to do. Nobody wants to talk to someone that's just like, "Oh, yeah, I've just
I'm into spreadsheets.
I yeah, Excel is my favorite pastime." Like, "Okay, what?"
No offense to anyone who's super into Excel. I heard there was, like, competitive excelling. I don't know, I heard it on a podcast, but
I'm gonna have to
anyways,
look into that now. I don't know if that's a
yeah.
thing.
Don't ask me any follow-up questions because I don't
That's
know.
not my forte. The people that to be fair, people that know Excel and can really work it is pretty impressive
I
'cause
mean, I don't,
yeah, I
so
just
good
type in the
job to
box.
them.
Yeah, I don't know any of the shortcuts, but competitive Excel, I mean,
I might have made that up, but I don't think I did.
I it sounds reasonable enough in today's day and age. I think Andy's looking it up. But yeah, there's this famous quote, I cannot think of who it's by, but it's "Find what you love and let it kill you."
Oh,
And it's a
that's
little
interesting.
extreme, but I like the idea behind that is
Yeah.
you give yourself to this thing that you enjoy.
I'd rather die by improv than, like, having a boulder fall on my head,
That
so
when you put it like that, yeah,
if
that
those
makes a
are
lot
my
of sense.
options, yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
if it's
take the
boulder
improv.
or improv, I think I'll take improv.
Totally. Although some people are like, "I'd rather die than get up on stage and do improv," but I would argue that they are wrong.
Stage fright is a really interesting thing because some people it's not an issue and others
Mhm.
it's the most terrifying thing is having to
Yeah.
speak in front of a group of people.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like what I was saying before, like, once you accept that you are who you are, you're not gonna be trying to put on a front, trying to, like, put on a persona, like, that's when people are gonna connect with you the most, whether it's on stage or just, like, in a conversation, right? Like, you're not pretending to have certain characteristics or trying to be cool. I think that's when people really appreciate, like, interacting with you or watching you on a stage.
Do you think that's a lot of what it is people not wanting to feel like a fool or wanting to feel cool and therefore not do it? Because if you get up there on stage, you might mess up. There's
Yeah,
that
maybe.
possibility.
Yeah, I think a fear of, like, doing something humiliating or
I've done a lot of that in my life. Oh,
humiliating things.
yeah, just doing things and then it turns out bad and you're like, "I should not have done," and then people around to see and you're like, "Oh, I blew
Yeah.
it."
Well, that's what I was saying before, right? Like, the early drafts of my novel that I was like, "This is amazing. I'm such a great writer. I'm gonna show everyone I know," and they're like, "Yeah, it was really original." And you're like 10 years later, you're like, "Why did I show them that?"
Well,
Yeah.
for a writer, it's gotta be hard because you are so heavily invested in this thing. You're pouring your
Yeah.
blood, sweat, and tears into it, and
Yeah.
then to put that out there and just get
Y
nothing.
yeah. Yeah, it takes
Crippling.
determination. Yeah, it's hard.
And to stick with it, to say, "Okay, maybe this first book wasn't it, but my second one, and maybe not my second one, but my like, to keep that
Yeah.
progression going and say, I just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other."
Yeah. I'm gonna keep, like, spewing quotes that I have no idea who they're attributed
That's all I
to,
do
but,
on this
like
podcast.
I don't know who originally said this, but I always hear, like, a professional writer is an amateur who never gave up, right? So, like, if you give up, you're just not gonna get there. So, like, that's an easy way to weed out the people who maybe aren't strong enough, I don't know, or and it's not a question of, like, "Oh, you're weak because you didn't, like, push yourself until the end." Like, not everyone can be successful, like, not everyone gets a publishing deal. I might not get one, I hope I do, but you can't predict what things are gonna happen. Also, the publishing industry is, like, a hot mess, like, things are worse every day.
Is that because nobody's buying print anymore?
No, that's not even it. It's just like there are a lot of factors. There are strikes going on because people are underpaid and overworked. There are like interns working for free who have to do everything. And it's just like across the board. If you look up anything about publishing, it's like 99% gonna be bad news.
I didn't know that was going on right now.
Yeah, HarperCollins is doing a big strike. I think they're on day like 53 or something like that. And it's publishing. I don't even know if it's still called the Big Five. There are literally five companies in the country that are like control all the other smaller ones. So
Sounds
yeah,
like the food industry where you just have these giant corporations that control everything else.
yeah, maybe it's yeah. So
Is it writers that are striking? Is it people that are working at the
no,
company?
it's writers are like, "Please just take us." No, it's like, it's editors, it's agents. Is it agents? I might be lying about that. It's editors, it's like, I think, like, typesetters and, like, I'm drawing a blank. It's a lot of people. Yeah. I don't know.
I didn't know that was going. Did you find
Assistants.
anything on that, Andy?
It looks like they're actually part of a union.
Yeah, the union is striking.
Yeah. They're asking for a $5,000 increase to starting salaries and basic union security rights.
Oh.
Do editors make a lot of money?
Honestly, I have no idea. Um, I
Clearly not.
assume
I guess not enough if they're striking right now. That's probably a safe assumption.
I think, and I don't wanna say anything dumb, but I think that the main people who make money in publishing are the people at the very top of the food chain.
I think that's a safe bet.
I think that's maybe even true for many
Yeah,
industries,
I think that's
unfortunately,
across the board.
which, people are doing some like, they're working hard, they're working their asses off, so I think they maybe deserve a bit more. If we don't want books to die, I think maybe we should pay people who work with books more.
Do Where do writers actually rank on that food chain? Are
Uh,
they near the top or the
no. I used to think that once you get a publishing deal, you are famous. You're a household name. You can just quit your day job immediately. I was so naive. Yeah, like, I can't tell you in terms of numbers because people are not super transparent about it, but like basically, once you get a publishing deal, they're going to give you an advance and hopefully your sales will make back that advance. Most likely not. And I think so what I read is that most people who are mid-list, which is to say your book is like decently popular but not super popular. It's not getting sent out in book boxes. It's not making the New York Times bestseller list. Those people obviously it's unlikely that they're going to make back that advance that they were paid, but publishers are okay with that because they're betting on the bigger ones to make back all that money several times over. Does that make sense?
so is the advance like a forward loan that they're just gonna
Kind of. I don't think you have to pay it back.
but
But
that might be the only amount of money you
it
get from
could
your
be.
book.
Yeah, and if it is successful, you might get a reprint and then I believe that you would get more money at that point. But yeah, people make more money in advances than they do in actual like royalties from copies sold, as far as I know.
And you wouldn't get any of that royalty money unless you pay off the advance
I think
first?
so. I believe that's how it works. I could be again completely lying to you right now, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Publishing is a huge mystery. Like I've been doing research and trying to figure it all out for years and I'm still like very shaky about it. Yeah.
Is that just because it's so hush hush?
A lot of it is, I think, a really great resource is like people that I know who are already published that, cuz you can actually like be like, "Hey, would you mind telling me like in actual numbers like how much you made if you don't mind?" But they're not going to be advertising that stuff on the internet for everyone to look at, you know?
There's something romantic about being a writer.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
so.
everybody thinks that.
Yeah, I mean, you're like, "Oh, everyone's going to think I have these deep thoughts." Even if you write total garbage, which I sometimes do.
But just the idea that your words carry that much weight in a
Yeah.
way.
I mean, when you write words and someone else reads those words, your voice is literally going into their head. Like, it's kinda creepy, but kinda
You're
cool.
kinda controlling their mind in a way. You're
Kind of.
getting
You're
them to
making them
think.
hallucinate. You're telling them what to hallucinate by describing stuff. It's awesome, and definitely a power trip.
I thought writers made more money. I've always had that idea of
I
you
mean,
can get a
some
book.
do,
Yeah,
like
obviously J.K. Rowling,
yeah,
she's
like,
probably doing okay.
I'm pretty sure she's doing okay. Yeah, like, take somebody, like, who's a household name, like Stephen King or something, compared to, like, some random person whose name is on the cover at something you just picked up off a shelf in a bookstore, like, significant difference.
From you talking with your friends, does it sound like the advances are more just a means of getting by until that next book comes out, not something you could really
I wouldn't
last a
even
couple
say
years
it's a
off?
means of getting by. I don't know anyone who only writes. Like, everyone I know who's a writer also has a day job, unless their spouse supports them. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. I know, reality check.
Damn, I did not I would not have guessed that.
I'm making myself depressed all over
Yeah,
again
right?
with this. But it's worth it because you get to put stories in people's heads.
It's worth it because you enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Like you get to make up a story and make up people, and have them do things.
Does anybody do any self-publishing? Is that a thing or
That is
direct to
definitely a
consumer?
thing. Yeah. It's a thing that a lot of people resort to because there are no gatekeepers, which is definitely an advantage. So there's good self-publishing and then the thing is there's no quality control, right? Like I could just bang something out in 10 minutes and put it on Amazon Kindle or whatever and have copies printed and like that's self-publishing. But also like I know plenty of people who like got an agent and worked really hard on their book and then things didn't really work out. Maybe they broke up with their agent and then they're like, "Well, you know what? This book is done. I'm going to self-publish it anyways." And it depends. So, there's a whole range of quality,
That you
but
could
it's
do, yeah.
definitely easier to do. Like anyone can do it. Obviously, there's going to be a learning curve to make it look professional and stuff. But yeah, so there's like pros and cons.
I like the idea of no gatekeepers,
Yeah.
but then there is the idea that you could just write up something truly terrible and just start
Yeah.
marketing the shit out of it.
It could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing, right? Like maybe you're an undiscovered genius and no one really gets you, but once you decide to distribute it to the masses, everyone's like, "Wow, that person's amazing." And I never would have found out because they're not what like marketers are looking for or whatever, what the industry thought they wanted. Or on the other hand, it could be the opposite situation.
And it kind of depends on your following at that point too, because if you have a big presence online,
Oh yeah.
easier for you to market.
Yes, and, guess what? More bad news. For traditional writers, a lot of times you are expected to do your own marketing these days. So and it depends, like, if they think you're gonna be a huge success, you might have a marketing team to do some work, but you'd still be expecting, as the author, to do a large sum of it by yourself.
So they're really just coming in for the publishing aspect. They're gonna print the book for you and you need to do everything else.
I mean, I don't think it's quite that extreme, but yeah, unfortunately, I'm pretty sure like everyone has to market themselves at least a little bit, even if you're like at the top.
Do you get to negotiate your contract where if you're a new publisher and you've just gotten your agent, say they pick up your book,
Mhm.
do you have any sway at that point or you need to be more established to say I want this amount from royalties are from my book.
I think that's why you want to have a really good agent, because they're going to be doing the negotiations for you, because like it's complicated. Like there's all these different clauses and, different factors into what you'll be making and why. And so some people do submit their manuscripts to publishers without an agent. And like, yes, you would make more money that way because an agent will typically take 15% of what you make
Off the top.
off the top, yeah. But it's a lot more likely you're gonna get that far with an agent than without one. And not that many publishing houses accept unagented manuscripts. So
Is that just because it's the first layer of
the
quality
gatekeeper.
control?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Because then at least you have somebody saying, okay, I believe in this enough to attach my name to it now
Exactly. Like
too.
I've worked with that person before and I think they have good taste. So if they think that book's good, then it's more likely to be good than one that just ended up on my desk.
Yeah.
No
Somebody
one
just
vetting
coming
it.
off the street. This is going to be the next great book. You should,
Yeah.
sign me.
Yeah.
Everybody wants their cut.
Yeah.
Everybody wants their cut.
I think, yeah, agents work really hard, so I think they deserve their cut. But there are definitely people out there who maybe don't have like any certification or whatever, who are just like, oh, you have to run your book by an editor before it even gets to an agent, and I'm an editor and I charge this exorbitant amount. So people are scamming each other out there, I think. And sometimes a manuscript can really benefit from being edited by an actual professional editor before going to an agent, but like that's a big expense that you shouldn't necessarily have to pay unless you really need it.
Is an editor adding into their own flair in their critiques, or is it more just phrasing and
I,
word check or spell
Yeah,
check?
I mean, there are different types of editors too. There's copy editing, which is literally like the spelling and the grammar and whatnot. And then there's I cannot say this word, developmental editing. Developmental. Does that sound right?
Developmental, yeah.
That's hard to say. And they're the people who actually are gonna like go into your story, and like they're not allowed to make changes without your approval, but they could say, for example, like this character's reaction didn't feel right to me. What if he did this instead? And they would like make suggestions for how to make your story more cohesive, and then you would think about that and see how you can implement them. Sometimes it's conversation, you would go back and forth, you know.
And it probably varies depending on the editor, I would imagine,
Yeah.
how heavy-handed they are or not.
Yeah. And that's true of agents too. Like a lot of agents are editorial agents, like mine is, which is awesome, which means that she has been like giving me feedback for each revision so that it can be as strong as it can be before we go on submission, which is when you go and send it out to editors and publishers.
Is that like a one chance shot when you go out to submit it to editors? Is you better have it as well as you want it?
It's a one shot for each person you're sending it to, but there are a lot of publishers out there, so sometimes there'll be a system of like, okay, what are your very top choices? We're gonna send those like maybe we're gonna save those for later, because you might get something called a revise and resubmit, which is when somebody reads it and they're like, I really do like this, however there's one big glaring problem, are you willing to rework it and then send it back to me? Which is also a gamble, because you might do that. You might spend 6 months working on it and fixing it and sending it again, and they're like, nah, still no. But sometimes those are great edits, and somebody else will pick it up and be like, oh, I really like that element. And you'll be like, yeah, it was totally like that from the beginning.
I mean, the whole thing just seems like a gamble,
Yeah,
which it is, because
it is.
you're working it and hoping that somebody's interpretation is
Yeah.
gonna line up with it,
Yeah.
and then it'll click, or you just go back to the drawing board.
Yep. That's why, like, I really, like, I can't judge anyone who decides to do self-publishing, because it's, like, obviously, why wouldn't you want to avoid all that hassle? But, I want to be on shelves. So, I want to be at Northtown Books and whatnot.
It would help seeing it on an actual shelf in like a Nordstrom's, right?
Yeah.
Nordstrom, is that a bookstore? Or did I just
Barnes
make
and
that up?
Nobles?
Barnes and Nobles.
They sound
Nordstrom's are
similar.
closed, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think
If
they
it was
have,
in a
like,
Nordstrom, it might be a little
appliances.
awkward. Barnes and Noble, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea of being a writer. I've always thought, like when I was a kid, I was like, man, it would be so cool. That and an astronaut, which neither of those have really panned out for me yet.
Too bad.
Yeah, but the idea of again, just tying back into your you're putting this thing it's this piece of you out there. I've always
Mhm.
found that attractive where
Yeah.
regardless of what happens, this is a part of you now. It's out for
Yeah.
the public.
It's cool. I mean, yeah, I mean, it can be scary. Say, like, imagine you're writing about something super personal, right? Like, luckily I write fiction, so I don't have to worry too much about that. But like themes happen. Like themes will things you've been thinking about, something that's been like bothering you or has been on your mind in a while. Like a lot of times that stuff just comes out in your writing and you're like, "Oh, I didn't mean to put that on the page, but there it is." And like turns out that's your authentic voice, right? Like those are the themes that like needed to come out, which sounds very like hippy dippy airy fairy, but
Well, it's gotta be therapeutic in that sense
yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
because you're working through not necessarily trauma, but these things that have happened to you
It
or your
can
life,
be.
yeah, or
Yeah,
even
yeah.
trauma, and it's coming out in your character development.
Totally. Like, pretty much every book I've written has had, like, a female main character becoming more empowered, which I don't think is a coincidence. Like, that's something that's important to me. So, like, yeah, I think it's something I think about a lot is, like, coming into your own and becoming who you're meant to be and, like, shedding things that are holding you back and whatnot. And so, like, those themes, like, even when I'm like, "I'm not gonna write about that this time,"
It just comes
every
back.
time, that's what I write about. Yeah.
Do you so 4 books, 4th in progress,
Mhm.
is that pretty standard? I would imagine it's pretty rare for the first book you write to get picked up.
God, I know someone who did, and I love her, but I hate her. Yeah, I think it's pretty like, I know people or I'm part of a lot of online communities for writers and stuff, so I see a lot of publishing stories, and some people wrote 8 books and queried 8 books before they got an agent, you know what I mean? And, like, of course, there's, like, gonna be the small percentage that, like, their first book was an instant success, but I think it's pretty rare. Um The thing I like about the fact that I have a lot of that I, like, had already written several books before getting an agent is that, like, those are, like I said before, projects that I can revisit, and, like, now that I have somebody to send them to, like, who knows, maybe she'll like them, and those can become, published works in the future, who knows?
You almost have that back catalog to still
Yeah.
work on.
Yeah, even if they're not yet at the point that, like, someone would wanna publish them, like, it's better than 0 words, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's better than you just having the one, and
Yeah.
that gets rejected. "Oh, now I gotta start from scratch."
Yeah, they say you should always be working on your next, project. Publishing takes a really long time too, even from the point where you sign a contract and you have a publishing deal, it takes 2 years for your book to come out from that point. So, like, you should always be working on your next project, otherwise you're just gonna spend all your time being anxious and waiting and worrying.
How long did it take you to write your 3rd one?
Um, I wanna say the first draft was maybe 6 to 8 months or something, but that's the first draft, right? And then I
All the revisions start adding up too.
yeah, like, I think before I started querying it to try and get an agent, it was at about 2 years, a year and a half. Although, it's kind of funny how I got my agent because, there's this thing called Manuscript Academy. It's like a company that they have contacts with a lot of agents and a lot of editors and people who are in the industry, and you can basically like pay them to read your work and give you feedback, which is great if you don't, know anybody who's a professional who can help you out. So I had done that. I paid like a ridiculous amount of money to get somebody to look at my first 50 pages, and she gave me the feedback. A couple months later, it's like, yeah, it takes them a little bit of time. And I was really lucky that she was like, "I really like this. Like, when you've revised it and finished it and it's ready to be queried, like, please send it to me. I'd love to read it." So I was like, "Yes, awesome." So like about 6 months later, it was finally ready. I sent it to her and then got no response, which can happen, right? It's like we were talking about before, people get ghosted. So I was like, "Okay, well, how long should I wait? I don't wanna bug her. I know that agents are really, really, really busy. I don't wanna put pressure on her. I don't wanna antagonize her." I heard different people say, like, "Wait, like, 3 months, wait 6 months," and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna be safe. I'm gonna wait 6 months." So in the meantime, I'm sending it to all these other agents, getting all these rejections. I got a couple of, like, partial and full requests, which means they wanna see some of it or and then they didn't pan out, and so at the 6-month mark, I was like, "I'm just gonna nudge her." and see if she ever received my manuscript. And so I did. I emailed her. And like 2 days later, she responds and she's like, "Oh my God, your manuscript like ended up in the wrong folder and I never saw it. I'll read it and get back to you this week." And then like a week after that, she emails me and she's like, "I love your book. I would love to have a call with you. Like, let's talk." Which like writers know the call is an important thing. Like you can pretty much guess what that means. Unless you say something stupid and offensive during the call, like that means they're gonna offer. So I was like freaking out, like, "Oh my God, it's happening." Yeah.
And how? I mean, thank God that you emailed her, right? Because
I
otherwise you
know.
would have just been like,
I could
she
have been in
ghosted
her
me.
spam folder for like the next 10 years and I wouldn't have known.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a funny story.
Uh,
Is a manuscript just the first 50 pages of a book, or
uh,
what's a
a
manuscript?
manuscript is the book,
The
the
whole
whole
thing.
thing. Yeah. The Word document or printed. Yeah.
So it's like the final draft that you have, or the most current one that you would
Generally,
use.
yeah, it's what you think is the final draft, which is just the most current draft.
And then they say, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do a few more revisions."
Exactly. Yeah. So like oftentimes agents like you'll send your query letter, which is basically the pitch and like, "Oh, my book is similar to this book and that book. These are some of this is like these are the stakes that are supposed to hook you. This is the character. Here's a little bit of bio like, "Oh, I have a degree from the creative whatever, like your little bio." So that's like it's like a one-page letter, right? And you send it out, and most agents will say, "Please also send your first 10 pages." That way, like sometimes they'll read the query letter first and then they'll read your pages, or vice versa. But if any of those things hook you, then that's when they're gonna reach out and ask for more. So they'll say either I'd like a partial request or which would be like maybe 50 pages, it depends. And then full manuscript request is like send me the entire book. Because they don't want to spend time reading something that's like
Yeah,
not gonna be something they want.
especially if it's like 400 pages. That's a serious investment to just say,
Yeah. And for debut authors, like these days, they don't want you to have too long a book because they don't want to risk printing a long book that might not be successful. So if you're like, if it's your first book, like it needs to be under a certain word count. Otherwise, your chances are going to be drastically diminished.
wow.
Yeah. More stakes.
Does that depend on the genre?
Yeah,
Or does
fantasy is a little more forgiving. Fantasy tends to be a little bit longer, but even then, like my book is fantasy and I'm trying really hard to cut it down and make it a lot shorter because I know that'll increase my chances.
how many pages are you at?
I don't know in pages because it depends how it's printed, but in word count, I am at how long am I? 1,000 700,000. No, 7,000. I'm really bad at numbers.
I was gonna say 700,000 sounds like a crazy number. I'm trying to put that into
It was
context.
at it was at 18,000 and now I think it's at is it 17,000? I don't know. Yeah. It's
18,000.
yeah, it usually so they don't you shouldn't be more than 100,000. Yeah.
I'm trying to put that into frame of reference. What would that translate to
In
a
pages,
book?
so your average novel is going to be like 300 pages. So when I sent my manuscript off to Kinko's just so I could have a paper copy so I could like mark it up
Oh, so you
by
printed it out
hand.
for yourself.
I did that one time. It was expensive. And it was I think like 425 pages.
How much did it cost to have it printed up?
It was like $70.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. I'm not doing that
Yeah,
again.
you're like, money done. I've learned.
I thought it might like kick me, like I thought it might like help me get out of my head by doing it manually. You know how sometimes writing things instead of typing
Well,
things can
having that physical copy is nice
yeah.
sometimes.
Um I don't know if it was really worth $70 though to try that.
How much time are you dedicating? Do you break it out? Like, I want to write X amount of hours a day or a
Yeah.
week.
So a lot of people would say that I am not financially smart because I purposely work half time so that I can write in the afternoons. Like that's super important to me. I could work full time, but then I would have, 4 hours less per day to work on my novel and I would definitely not get to my goal as fast if I'm going to get to my goal at all. So yeah, I'm sacrificing a little bit of a paycheck in order to have time to write. I'm so impressed by people who have, like, 10 children and, like, a bazillion commitments and a full-time job and also write a novel every day at 5 a.m. Like, that's insane. People do it.
You like writing in the afternoon, that's when you feel the most creative?
I'm just not a morning person. I'd love to be able to write before work, but my work would have to be in the afternoon because sleep is very important.
Sleep's important across the board. How many people are not getting enough sleep?
Too many. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's I think working on something consistently like that daily, where you do it in the afternoon, I think
Mhm.
that helps. I think when you
Yeah.
take breaks where you do a day on and then take 3 days off, I feel like you lose something in that.
I find it really hard to get back into the headspace when I do that. And sometimes I do that. You know, you can't be a machine and continuously be working, but yeah, it can be really hard to get back into it when you do that.
Do you is there like a trick you use to try to get into your character's mindset?
I like surveys, like character surveys. Like sometimes the questions are totally silly, like, what's inside your character's fridge? What kind of socks are they wearing? But like sometimes even with like silly answers like that, you'll go off on a tangent and then discover all this stuff and you're like, "Oh, wow. Like there's all these things about this character that I never would have thought of if I hadn't started with this stupid question." So,
Is it hard writing in that frame of reference? Because what if you write I mean, do you often find yourself writing a lot and then having to scrap it because it just doesn't fit into your
yup.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
That freaks me
A
out. The idea
lot.
that you spend 2 weeks writing something and then realize,
Yeah.
"Oh, I can't use any of this."
Yeah, I mean, like, I messed up the numbers, but, like, I cut, like, 7,000 words from my last draft, and I was just like, "Oh, man, I don't wanna think about how much this is in hours."
Yeah, what is the time commitment, right? So,
Yeah.
8 months, you're doing most afternoons, I mean, that adds up to a lot of time.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's like, I'm brainstorming and making little lists and things. It's not always necessarily me just, like, staring at my computer, like, spewing out words, but there are little tricks for productivity that, like, like, I have a critique partner who's awesome. I have several critique partners, but the one that I talk to the most will do writing sprints where, like, she's, like, in the Midwest, but we talk to each other on Facebook Messenger a lot, and we'll be like, "Okay, we're both gonna write right now. We're starting our timer now. We're doing a 15-minute sprint. What's your goal?" "I wanna get 1,000 words done in that 15 minutes, maybe 7,000 or something, or 700." And I'll say my goal, she'll say her goal. We'll start the timer, and then we'll go. And, like, honestly, like, the shorter periods of time like that, the shorter sprints are really, really good for getting out of your head and just, like, jump starting the words.
Well, sometimes just starting is the hardest part.
Yeah.
Just sitting down and
Blank
actually
page syndrome.
Yeah. I mean, how many people I find myself in that situation sometimes with editing the podcast where you're just sitting there looking at it like, "Okay.
You're like, "It'll move on its own if
Yeah,
I
right?
just."
If I just sit here long enough, will it be done?"
Yeah. Yeah, there's a thing in writing that, people will ask, "Are you a plotter or a pantser?" So a plotter is somebody who, like, writes, elaborate outlines, like, "Okay, chapter 1, this happens, chapter 2 this happens, this is my 3-act structure," and then a pantser is someone who flies by the seat of their pants, and they're just like, "I'm just gonna word vomit," and some people can make that work really, really, really well. I definitely need a little bit more structure, but my process involves a lot of freaking out as well. So I'll, like, have a really nice outline and then end up deviating from it, freak out, make a new outline, end up deviating from that. And it's like there's a lot of freaking out involved, but by the end, I do have a decent draft.
I am definitely a pantser in 99% of what I
Yeah,
do.
you
I
don't like to plan?
No, I just physically can't. We'd have to write, rough outlines in college and stuff for
Uh-huh,
papers,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I could not
You're
do
like,
it.
"Why can't I just write
I
it?"
could not do it. I would just write out a whole draft, and then that
Yeah,
would end up being basically my paper, and they'd be like,
right.
"No, you need to lay it out for me a little quicker," and it's like,
Yeah.
I cannot I physically can't do that. It's either all or nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kinda silly to force people to do it when that's not their process,
Yeah,
like.
as long as they turn in the paper, just take the
Totally.
paper.
Yeah, exactly, but what do I
Yeah.
know?
I guess with have you heard of ChatGPT? You know,
No, what's that?
it is this new AI system. I'm gonna butcher my explanation of this. You know what? Can you find like the definition of what it is? It's an AI thing in
Don't feel
Professors are
bad, I butchered publishing, so
yeah,
we'll be
I butcher
even.
words all the time on this podcast. That's half the battle is just finding the right word and then not messing it up when you're
Yeah.
speaking. But it's this AI chat interface, I guess you could say, and professors are freaking out because kids are using it to write
Oh, it's
papers,
writing, okay,
and it's
yeah.
writing really good papers. One I read an article from one professor that was talking about it, and he said he had a student use it and turn in a paper, and he contacted the student and said, "This is the best paper I've ever read. How did you do this?"
Uh-oh.
And then the student fessed up and said, "Oh, I used this
Really?
program."
They actually, like, told
Right? Who
them?
does that? Who
I guess
narcs on
they probably
themselves?
were like, "Oh, I feel so guilty."
Yeah, so she narked, and the professor, it just blew his mind. He's like, "I'm gonna have to restructure my entire class
Oh
because
god.
I guess now they wanna do handwritten in class essays so that you can't go home and use this thing." Did you find a definition for it?
Not necessarily a definition, but ChatGPT can be also fine tuned. So like the more information that you feed it, it just pulls information everywhere, um, depending on like what kind of topic you're wanting to write about. But to go off what you were saying, there's actually AI detectors now. Now that ChatGPT has come out for 2 months, they have detectors so that you can see if an article's been written by AI or not.
Narcs.
So
Some
they're
kid
already
in I think that was going to Harvard wrote a program for that, and all I could think of, why
Oh,
would you that's like
man.
the kid in class when you're leaving and the teacher hasn't collected the homework, and then some kid says, you forgot to collect the homework. Why are you sabotaging the class?
Mm.
Let's just all get out of here. What are we doing?"
God, yeah, I mean, if that thing really takes off, which it sounds like it already did, like,
I think it's
writers are
already there.
screwed.
I think a lot of people are
Like,
screwed.
please
Art?
don't start writing novels with that because that's, like, my dream that you're taking away.
Do you think we would ever get to a place where that would replace a majority of writers?
God, I hope not. I don't know. AI scares me.
Scares me too.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible, right? Like those what's that trend with the art, that like the
Yeah.
profile pictures, the AI thing, and like artists are super mad about that cuz everyone's like this is amazing. I love it. And they're like, "Well, I've worked my whole life to develop these skills and now like you're saying this thing is better, you
And it's
know?"
crazy how good they are.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
know, which I hate saying cuz I want to support artists, but like they're
it's
super
pretty
cool.
good, yeah. It's I think we're gonna be in a weird time where
Yeah.
it's just I mean, people are using it to write code for programming,
Oh,
and it's
damn.
insane. You could just feed it server development, like, all this crazy stuff, and it just outputs what you need.
Yeah. Ugh.
Where does that where do we go with that?
I mean, if we don't need humans anymore, like, what's the point? I
The
don't wanna be
one
an android.
I do. Half Android. I would be okay with that. I
Not me.
just I think it could be a good thing if we took, like, a Greek philosophical standpoint on it where we're gonna use this to replace some jobs and allow people to embrace more creative aspects. But are we
Yeah.
gonna go down that path, or are we just gonna have a lot of unemployed people because we
That's a good
phase them
question.
out?
I have no idea. Yeah. I don't know, I'm like, "Can't we just, like, live in the '80s?"
You like the '80s?
I mean, I was only alive for 2 years of it, but
Best 2 years ever.
best 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, good times.
Yeah, I don't know, it freaks me out, especially that ChatGPT because they're already coming out with another version of it here pretty quick, and they're saying it's gonna be 10 times
I
better at what it does.
God, I mean, if it can write a super amazing, convincing college paper, like, why not a novel?
It would be interesting
So,
to see what it would come up with for a I mean, obviously, you could feed it whatever you want, but
yeah.
I don't know how it would do writing 400 pages
Might
compared to, like, a 10-page essay.
Yeah, it might be hard to come up with original ideas if it sources from materials that already exist, right? Although, no idea is original, so
Do you believe in that? You think everything stems from something else?
I think inspiration comes from everywhere. Like your ideas have to come from somewhere, right? But I think it's just like the way you tell something uniquely is going to be different from the way someone else tells it, even if it's essentially the same story. So,
I have heard that, oddly enough, a lot of stories stem from the Bible in one way or another, that it's just, like, some rephrasing and we're changing it, but a lot can be traced back to that one story.
it's a big like collection of source material, so it wouldn't surprise me, like in Greek myths as well. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people drive or even just like a theme that maybe is found in the Bible, but is also found in like a million other things, like there are only so many themes. I don't know if you've heard of like the monomyth, like Joseph Campbell. He has this idea of that there is only one story, the hero's journey, and it has different steps, and it's about a person trying to achieve a thing. They meet certain mentors along the way, and then they achieve the thing, and then life is forever different. And he argues that basically every story is that story, but a different like version with different details, which I think is interesting. I don't know, maybe there are exceptions. There are plenty of videos on YouTube where you'll type in like hero's journey Disney and it'll show you how every Disney film has like the exact same plot points, just like told in various different ways.
I think I've heard that in reference to Star Wars too, that
Yeah,
it's just
that's one
the
of the
hero's journey.
examples that they
Yeah.
cite a lot. Yeah.
Well, if it's a good idea, the idea that it wouldn't recycle or be repurposed in a different way is kind of crazy. Like people love adapting things and
Yeah.
trying to carry it forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people still find ways to be surprised. I think the movie industry needs a little bit of help with finding some original things these days,
That would be
but
nice.
I think in literature, like there are plenty of like seemingly new ideas that maybe are inspired by previously existing things, but they're still holding people's attention. People are still flipping pages and, you know, or listening because audiobooks are also books.
Do you ha- do you not like audiobooks? Do you
No,
think
I
those
like
fit in
them.
well? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I like them. I used to think it was kind of cheating to be like, "Oh, I read like 10 books this month, but 9 of them were audiobooks." But I've sort of changed my mind about that. Yeah.
I'd imagine some people are sticklers to no, you need to read the written
Yeah, but
word.
like that's not super inclusive. Like say you have like you're blind or something. Does that mean like you can't read? Like I mean, well, I can technically I don't know. He's looking at
Technically,
me
I
like,
was
"Well,
like,
yeah,
oh
it
yeah, you made a
does.
point.
You can read Braille." No, I think it counts.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're still ingesting words. Yeah.
And how many people are busy doing things and the ease of access,
Yeah.
putting in a set of headphones? I think that's why
Yeah.
podcasts are so popular. Is you can just
Totally.
throw in
I'm
your
addicted to
headphones.
podcasts.
Yeah, and it's because you don't really have to think super hard about it. You're just consuming the information.
Yeah. Also, if you're a person like me who works from home and like doesn't get out much except for when they do improv, it's like, "Oh, my friends are in my ears. That's so nice."
And you get
Especially if
it.
you listen to the same ones all
Yeah,
the
you get
time.
attached to them. You
Yeah,
hear that
yeah.
same voice.
Like,
You
"Oh, so
start.
and so is doing that funny joke again," you know. Yeah.
It's almost like reading in that sense, where you're kind of just enveloped in their space, like they're
Yeah,
feeding
yeah.
into your brain.
Yeah. Yeah. Something creepy about it, but I like it.
Yeah, it's 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 an interesting time for everything. For
Yeah.
everything. You got ChatGPT. You've also got Audible.
Yeah. I think my life goal is just to infiltrate as many brains as possible. I've just decided that.
I think that's a pretty good goal.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's a pretty
Am I
good
an
goal.
evil genius? We'll see.
I guess it depends on the once we read the book, then we can make a judgment call and say,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, maybe this is skewing a little dark. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
Is it a happy book?
It has a no spoilers, but it has a happy ending.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely dark things that happen in it, but it's about somebody coming out of that, and
Overall uplifting.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm excited. I will definitely check it out when and if hopefully
If I know,
yeah,
big if.
it comes out.
Well,
I
I'm
mean,
definitely closer to it coming out than I was a couple months ago.
which
So
is good. And congratulations on getting the agent.
thank
I think that's an
you.
awesome step.
Thanks. Yeah, she's cool. Like it's good to find someone that you're like, okay, this person, their values are in line with mine. So fingers crossed.
Feels like a good fit.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Thanks.
Laura, thank you for coming on. I really appreciated
Yeah,
talking
this
with
was
you.
fun.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again once your book comes out.
For sure. Yeah. Exclusive.
Yeah, exclusive interview.
Totally.
Do you want to plug where people can find you, where they can find all your stuff?
Yes. How do I do that? Do I want to give you my website because it's got some old, outdated stuff on there? Yeah, let's do it. LaraHenerson.com. LaraHenerson. Everyone thinks there's a U in my name and a D in my last name. Story of my
Henderson.
life.
Yeah.
Laura Henderson. I get so annoyed. Anyways, that's my website.
Do you want to plug? Do you have any socials you want to plug? Or?
I would say people should just check out the Exit Theater in Arcata. It's on G Street above the mattress store. It's new. A lot of people don't know about it yet, but there's some fun plays going on, and that's where I do my improv. So
And can they
come
still
do
sign
improv.
up for your improv
Yeah,
class?
yeah. It doesn't start till this coming Monday, so I don't know when you're releasing this,
This
but
this is out right now. This is live.
hey!
There you go. Is the information to sign up also on your site, or do they have to go to the Exit
All they have
Theater?
to do is email me. Yeah, which is, what's my address? improv.with.lara@gmail.com. There we go.
Okay, well, Laura, really, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. This is awesome.